The 2-minute message preview at the non-denominational New Hope Olympia is Courage for the Discouraged. What Bible character do you think you identify with more than any other? We hesitate to name any names because all of the people we would want to resemble were so great in God's kingdom, like David, the man after God's own heart, John the Baptist, who was more than a prophet, Peter, a rock in the kingdom, Paul the fervent apostle, or Barnabas the encourager. More humbly, we might think more in terms of the characters found in Jesus' parables or miracles, especially the publican, whose only plea was, "God, be merciful on me, a sinner." Or we might see ourselves as the centurion who considered himself unworthy. But the Bible, especially in Hebrews, draws our attention to great men of faith. In reading about these men, we compare and contrast ourselves with them, mainly because we see ourselves as inferior to men and women of faith. But the Bible also draws our attention to a heroic figure from the Old Testament and says that he possessed a nature like ours. James 5:17 Elijah was a man with a nature like ours. As much as we might shrink from saying that Elijah is just like me, the fact is that he possessed emotions just like we have, faced challenges just like we do, and experienced many of the same things we have all experienced. At a point in Elijah's life, he succumbed to deep depression, and he actually asked God to take his life. Discouragement and sometimes depression are a normal part of life for many of us. And even God's most anointed servants get discouraged or depressed sometimes. Christian psychologist Dr. Gary Collins writes that depression may be as mild as a passing period of sadness that follows a personal disappointment and, in its severer forms, can be overwhelming feelings of despair, fear, exhaustion, immobilizing apathy, hopelessness, and inner desperation. Have you ever been there? We all, at times, sink into depression and despair. In his weekend message, Pastor Dell makes 5 statements about depression, giving us 4 foundational principles from God's Word on how we can bounce back from depression and move on to living a productive life.